This is The World Now on TVC News. Thanks for joining us. We are staying with development in Africa. The coup leaders in the Republic of Niger say they can only return the country to democratic leadership in 3 years. This latest disclosure signals a clear stance in that the coup leaders are not moved by threats of military action if diplomacy fails. Many youth of the country also seem very ready to fight in the event of military action by ECOWAS. They insist they can no longer wait for economic and developmental progress of their nation. We have a report.
Supporters of the military junta of Niger Republic were forced on Saturday to halt a census of people willing to volunteer for non-military roles in defense against a possible intervention by West African powers. The organizers, who tagged the Headcount, the mobilization of young people for the fatherland, said they halted the census because they were allegedly overwhelmed by the number of people who turned up. Thousands of mostly young men besieged a stadium in the capital, Niamey, hours before the counting was scheduled to start. The crowd, made up of especially youths, have been expressing strong support for the junta, which had defied international pressure to step down after deposing the country's elected leader, Mohamed Bazoum. The organizers of the Niamey recruitment drive say they did not intend to sign up volunteers for the army, but rather to gather a list of people willing to lend their civilian skills in case ECOWAS attacks. A large number of Nigerian youths are in support of the military junta because of the pressure from unemployment and their desperate need to possibly find jobs through a change of leadership. At a densely attended previous stadium rally on the 11th of August, the youths applauded the coup plotters, pledging to support their rulership. Many are happy to have registered to get jobs.
To engage the party involved.
ECOWAS on Friday said it had agreed on an undisclosed D-Day for a possible military intervention if diplomatic efforts fail, which could lead to an escalation of tension that could further destabilize a conflict-torn and impoverished region.
It is our duty to exhaust all avenues.
But in what seems like a twist of event, an ECOWAS delegation flew into Niamey on Saturday to hold talks with the junta, indicating that efforts to resolve the standoff peacefully have not been shut down. The coup in Niger and subsequent international sanctions have piled extra pressure on its struggling economy. And according to the World Bank, the country is one of the world's least developed nations, with more than 40% of its population living in extreme poverty.
For more on the Republic of Niger and plans by ECOWAS to restore democratic order amid military resistance, President Emeritus, Corporate Council on Africa, Stephen Hayes, joins me from Washington, D.C. via Zoom. Thank you for joining us on The World Now. Well, 3 years transition, is that a long time or just okay?
Well, it's a long time, and it's not just okay. It's a standard operating procedure. Most coup leaders come in and say, well, in 3 years, we'll turn it over to civilians. Maybe it will, maybe they will, maybe they won't. They usually don't. And there's usually not a lot of progress. So I think it's totally unreasonable. Also, it's totally unreasonable to be staying in this position, as a matter of fact. And I think that the question is, how soon can you return to a stable rule?
How soon? Well, Niger's leaders say the principles for the move would be decided within 30 days. What are your expectations?
Well, my expectations is there will be a dialogue. I don't, at some point, I think that they need to first release the president. If they are not wanting to be seen as terrorists, then they basically have kidnapped the president, so they should release him at least to ECOWAS and he and his family in good care. So that I do expect that to happen. That would probably be a first condition to talks in any case. I think that ECOWAS does need to stand strong on this. That doesn't necessarily mean you invade a country or you send troops in to restore stability, because I think it's a very complex situation. So my expectation is that there will be a dialogue, that they do need to release the president instead of holding him hostage, because that's exactly what terrorists do by definition. So I think there just needs to be a dialogue very soon.
Dialogue. And what message do you think General Chani was conveying when he said that any military intervention in Niger would not be a walk in the park?
Well, he obviously says that there would be stiff resistance. Whether Burkina Faso and Mali militaries would come in, and still up for question in my mind. But he's threatening resistance to any military intervention. So he's saying that this isn't just going to be roll over and play dead. It's pretty clear. Now, whether he is capable of following that up or willing to follow that up, we don't know. We hope it won't be tested. We hope that there will be a more reasonable approach. But this is just simply outrageous, and I can understand ECOWAS drawing a line in the sand. This just can't go on with any hope for stability or any hope of economic development if every year and a half some military leader wants to have a coup. You can't have stability in that way, and you can't maintain a nation.
And the military leaders seem to be enjoying some level of support of citizens in certain quarters. You have some people joining what is termed the mobilization of young people for the fatherland. How do you react to that in the face of peace talks?
Well, I think that it's interesting in a number of ways. It reminds me of back in the old Soviet days, any time that the government, the Soviet Union, wanted to exhibit something, they would get the citizenry to rally around and have a sort of quasi spontaneous demonstration. President Bazoum was elected with 56% of the population, so I think that has to be remembered. The other point, though, is yes, I think there are people who are unhappy, particularly young people. There's legitimate reasons in the sense that they are unemployed. It's one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. So there's got to be a lot of dissatisfaction. So it's not surprising there would be some demonstrations. It's not surprising that the government may or may not organize them as well.
And General Chani has described the ECOWAS sanctions as illegal and inhuman. How effective do you think these sanctions have actually been in efforts for restoration of democracy in Niger?
Well, I think it's far too early. I've never been really in favor of sanctions in general. I think they were important in the case of South Africa. I'm not sure they've worked that well other places. The problem with sanctions is that the first people that get hurt are the poor and the working class. The people at the top don't really suffer that much. They're fairly insulated. They have all the wealth. They have the access to about everything that they would want in any case. So the sanctions are a long-term weapon. How immediate they can take effect, I have my doubts. But again, there needs to be something seriously done to show that you can't simply go ahead with coups all the time. You're going to have a failed state on Nigeria borders, just like Sudan has become, and I think that would just be bad. It would be more than bad, frankly, but it would be very dangerous for Nigeria. It'd be very dangerous for the region.
President Emeritus, Corporate Council on Africa, Stephen Hayes, thank you for talking to us on The World Now.
Well, thank you.